Yahweh says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make thine enemies a footstool for thy feet. Ne'um Yahweh la'adoni. Now, where else, down here in verse 5, you have a different form, Adonai. And that's the normal form that's used for references to God, Yahweh. And what's important is that in the Hebrew, you have Yahweh. There's the tetragrammaton. Speaking, Ne'um, la Adoni. And notice the E at the end of that word. Why do I point this out? Well, because Unitarians, Jewish apologists will argue, and we need to know why they're making this argument, and I need to have an answer for it. They will point out that this is an interpretation. This is the 77 NASB I have up here right now. Yahweh says to my Lord, but what is Lord? Lord's capitalized. But what they will point out is every single time Adoni is used in the Hebrew Old Testament, it is in reference to a human person. Very frequently of a servant to his master, someone speaking to a king, but it's a human, Adoni. And so what they'll say is, well, if this is about Christ, and Christ says it's about him, Jesus, he quotes this and then asks the scribes and Pharisees, why does David call his descendant Lord? Should be the other way around, right? But they'll say, yes, he calls him Lord, but it's Adoni, it's not Adonai, it's certainly not Yahweh. So doesn't that make Jesus merely a human being? Well, Jesus is truly a human being. The Word became flesh. But is it an appropriate argument to say that since Adoni is used every time in the Hebrew text of a human, then that would mean that Jesus can't truly be God. He would be being placed in the human category by Psalm 110:1. Please look at these 4 Hebrew letters. And then come down here. It's right down here where it says, verse 5, the Lord is at thy right hand. Now, it's not Lord capitalized, so it's not Yahweh. It's not Yahweh. It's right here, and here are the same 4. Now, take the vowel pointing out. Just, that sort of got too close. Okay. Not real pretty, but what you should see is they are identical. They're the same 4 letters. Yeah, but you had to take the vowel pointing out. Well, here's the issue. Psalm 110, the Masoretic commentary, notice I have it here, Adonai versus La Adoni. Let me show you what the Hebrew text looked like in the days of Jesus. All right? Hebrew text in the 1st century. This is the famous, let's give thanks to God for having preserved for us for all these years, the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is the famous Isaiah scroll. This is actually from Isaiah chapter 9. Why not Psalm? Because they don't have the Psalter in that. What do you see? Let's look at a word like right here. What do you not see? Anywhere in this. there are no vowel points. The Masoretes developed an ingenious, not just vowel pointing system, but the Masorah, cross references. It's ingenious. But they developed this system long after the last apostle had died. So when Jesus is in the synagogue reading from a scroll that would have looked much like this, wouldn't it be interesting if it was the same one? Why not? Anyways, this is what it would have looked like. Now, what that means is when you don't have vowel pointing, you have to, as the reader, and this is the case with early Arabic as well, the early Arabic copies of the Quran, they don't have the later vowel pointing that you utilize. In modern Arabic, these things develop at a later point in time. And so that means the reader has to be doing a certain level of interpretation as you are reading along, based upon context. And that might mean that you might disagree with someone else as to what the context is. But the point is, when the New Testament writers quote from Psalm 110, it's just those 4 letters. It's not Adonai versus Adoni, because the difference in pronunciation there is due to vowel pointing. And there was none in the first century. So what happens is, over time, this is the Leningrad Codex from AD 1008. And this is the great example, the best example of the work of the Masoretes. And so you can see, you've now got your vowel pointing in place. In fact, there's Naum, Yahweh, La Adoni, just like we have in Hebrew text today. Where'd that come from? It came from a Jewish scribe. And by 1008 AD, the Jews knew by the middle of the 2nd century that text was used by Christians in their scriptures. And so when you put Adoni, you are making a commentary. That's not what was in the text. That's not what was written by the psalmist. You are making a commentary. And it would be a commentary written long after the Jewish people have come to understand the centrality of this text to the New Testament presentation of who Jesus is. So you see that whole argument that the Unitarians and the Jewish apologists, it's all based on Jewish commentary on Psalm 110:1, written many centuries, not only after the writing of Psalm 110, but after the writing of the New Testament as well. So that's all it is. It's just commentary. And so what was written was those 4 letters, well, 5 with the prefix, and you have to interpret what that means. Putting the E there and saying, this is with all the references merely to human beings, and therefore Jesus is only a human being, is pure commentary. It's not being derived from the text itself. Okay? So, keep that in mind as you encounter those who would point you to these things and would make those arguments to you.